Hi guys, my name's Tima and welcome back to another episode. If you've watched the previous episodes, you're probably pretty familiar with these segments where I introduce you to members of the team. And joining me today is none other than Ricky Ellson, an avid member of Flambard Williams. So at the office, Ricky's sort of known as the big brother of the group. His drive and work ethic mainly comes from the motivation that he gets from his young family. And thankfully, this is sort of expanded to everyone around him. So, Ricky, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Tima. And that's quite a kind introduction. Let's hope I live up to that.
I thought you'd be a bit surprised. I've got some good words to say about you, haven't I? But I'm probably a bit biased though. But Ricky, like I said, you are quite motivated and you're quite driven, but we just wanted, as always, to have you on here. So yeah, Ricky, why don't you, introduce yourself? I'd like to give you a little bit of a moment to speak to the mic and speak to the others.
Why not? And it's a very kind introduction you gave to me.
I'm a bit biased.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. So my name's Ricky. So I'm one of the longest kind of members within the Flambard Williams company. I've been there about 6 years. So those 6 years have gone pretty quickly. I worked in the previous office, which was a smaller one on Bank Street in Canary Wharf. As you probably know and team has explained, The team's expanded, more team members. I now run a team there and I'm lucky enough to have Tima as one of my lovely team members.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot for having me here.
And this isn't all scripted because he never says that. It's the first time I'm hearing you say that. Okay, perfect. Well, as always, Rick, I've got, a few questions that we've all sort of compiled for you. You ready?
Sure. How brutal are these questions going to be?
You'll have to find out, is all I'm saying. But we'll start off pretty low. Well, actually, you kind of answered half of this question, but okay. I'll ask it anyway. How did you come across Flambard Williams? And, well, I was going to say, how long have you been there? But you said 6 years.
Correct. So I probably, to answer that question, I need to explain what I was doing before.
Yeah, go for it.
So I followed my dream in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So I opened my own coffee shop and restaurant, which I was running for about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
One was in Bromley in southeast London. Then I moved to one slightly bigger in Sevenoaks.
Okay.
So kind of chased my dream for 8 years. It was one of them situations where in reality, it didn't quite kind of work with my, what I was thinking of what it would be. But I've always kind of thought in the back of my mind that sales would be, a decent place to be for me. Mm-hmm. I'm always been quite good with kind of customers. I used to run catering events.
Yeah,
so
you're a people person.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So that kind of fizzled out. Mm-hmm. Wasn't such a sad story. We sold it, made a profit. Kind of took my family to Ibiza for a good few months. Not partying.
Oh, okay.
My little one was still in nappies then.
I was gonna say.
And I basically came across an advert. I think I'm not sure, maybe Indeed, something like that. Applied for it, and I heard back from Jack or Angeline in the office straight away. Okay. And I did say to my partner at the time that I think I'm going to give it a go. I've never worked in London.
Yeah.
Was quite excited by the role. Always been interested in property.
Sure.
I've done a few little renovations here and there. Ended up meeting the guys in the interview on the first day. They made me pitch a product, which was really really kind of them. And the rest is history from there.
Oh, I love that. Gosh, that is a pretty well, I was going to say a brutal journey, but then I feel like, no, it was like you enjoyed your Ibiza trip, you had your business, and then you jumped right into the deep end of property. Yeah,
I let my hair down, I relaxed, I let the dust settle, and then I had something to jump back into.
The amazing and wonderful world of Flambard Williams, right?
True.
So, well, I was going to, again, you're kind of a step ahead of me on this one. So,
okay.
I'll still ask you.
Go for it.
But were you always into property? I know you sort of said you acquired a couple of coffee shops and you were sort of running them. Yeah. But was property always in the back of your mind, or was it more so just business, sales?
It was. And I moved out of my family home when I was quite young. I think I was in my early 20s. And at the time, I don't know if I want to give away my age, but the market was really soaring. I think it was in the 1990s.
Okay.
So I saw people around me, more family members that have made money through property.
Yeah.
So moved in with my ex-girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So we done up the house, kind of new kitchen, bathroom. And my idea was to remortgage it and then use that to buy a buy-to-let and go from there. But what actually happened was very different. We moved in together. Bear in mind, I was with her for about 7 years.
Okay.
After 4 months of living together, we split up.
Oh.
So that kind of put that plan on the back burner.
God.
But I always had the idea in my mind to kind of do something like that, and I knew it. It could work quite well as a business model.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, sorry about that, but you seem to be.
I'm gonna have to take
the
I'm gonna have to take the blame for that. Okay. In my 20s, I probably wasn't quite ready to settle down.
Gosh, oh no. But you're doing a lot better now, and your family and so on. You're all thriving, isn't it? And that actually takes me on to my next question, which is a bit personal to you. So, having such a young family, obviously you've got 2 beautiful children who are quite young, and your missus. Yeah. Is there a certain goal, Rick, that you're working towards? And it doesn't necessarily have to be financial.
Yeah. So I've got, just for everyone, I've got 2 daughters, Ivy and Blake. Blake, he's 7 years old, going on 17. I've had to ban her from her iPad at the moment. She's got a bit of an attitude problem.
Little diva.
Hopefully she'll grow out of that. And Ivy is 3. So Ivy's still in nursery. So what I want to basically do for them really is just provide everything they want in life without spoiling them.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure they're looked after.
Of course.
So they've got no kind of stress, no worries down the line. Of course, a little bit of stress is good. Yeah. Everyone needs a bit of motivation.
You can't have it all easy.
To kind of work hard.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure they're looked after. And at the moment, I just see an opportunity that I'm in my 40s.
Yeah.
I connect quite well with clients. A lot of people that I speak to are similar age, got kids. Everyone's thinking of the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think now's the time to really capitalise on my experiences. Yeah. Built up a bit of experience.
Of course.
Obviously, great training from Chris and the team as well. So
don't make his head any bigger.
No. Okay.
This is not us targeting. I don't know. I'm joking. Chris and Jack are great, aren't they?
Yeah. And at the same time, I don't want to be kind of working into my later life. I want to make sure there's the hard work's done now, and then the fruits of my labour, so to speak, will be there one day when I want to slow down.
Of course. So do you? I mean, I know you relate a lot, and I can tell you this firsthand. You relate a lot to a lot of our client demographic. Like you said, they're all sort of around your age, and they've got children, and all they're just looking to get there. So tell us, Ricky. Do you invest in property yourself, or do you only solely sell it?
So I've invested into a couple of properties. So I've got a buy-to-let in Sheffield. Okay. And I've also got an off-plan property in Liverpool. So those have been purchased over the last couple of years. Yeah. And I think, the sky's the limit, really. I'll be looking to kind of add to it as and when I can. Yeah. In between kind of doing up a house at the moment.
Yeah, of course.
So my
big dream family home.
Yeah, my wife Zoe's in charge of project managing the kitchen, and I've just seen one of the invoices. I'm like, wow, I think we need to maybe cut a few corners.
Well, you'll get good husband points for leaving that there. Really? A good kitchen renovation is always right up our street.
She says we need the marble kind of worktops. Of course you do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A floating island too, if you need one.
Okay.
I'm sure she'll throw that in there if she hasn't already. But tell me a bit more about your family, if you don't mind. For those who don't know, obviously you've got your 2 young daughters and so on, but is this, or did you invest in property again, not only to set up their futures, but I think what you've mentioned to us guys at the office is it's also to leave something to them to help them see sort of what you're building?
Yeah, so I mean, I hope I don't have to leave it to them sooner rather than later. I think I've got a few.
You're not that old.
I know my hair's receding a bit, but I think I've got quite a few years left. But one of the main motivations is I know they're going to have great careers.
Yeah.
I mean, the younger one I'm a little bit worried about. She's still head-butting walls and stuff and running around.
Oh,
but
bless her.
my older daughter, then, she loves school. She's really studious. I'm thinking, jokes aside, both of them will have a great future.
Yeah, of course.
But alongside that, I do feel that people need, an extra income, like a passive income or separate kind of business interests. Even if they've got a great career, I'd hope there would be entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Have I said that right?
I think so, but I'm not going to embarrass myself if you haven't.
Yeah, nearly. And for them, I'm thinking, when they're a bit older, 18, 21, whenever that time's come, I can pass over maybe a couple of properties that they can actually take care of. They can manage them, kind of liaise with the lettings agent or even look to make their own investments. So I want to give them that grounding that they kind of know that type of business. They've got that experience, which, if they wanted to, they could expand it for their children and next generations.
Yeah, generational wealth, isn't it? And starting it off from your father or your grandfather is always a strong start. You actually mentioned at the start that you have invested in both Sheffield and Liverpool. And obviously we know this firsthand. They are some of the larger, more talked about cities in the UK. Yeah. So my question, Rick, is as a company, why do we focus on the major cities? Why not go to, your likes of a seaside town and, more of a suburban area? I don't know, Brighton, Cornwall. Yeah. What is it about the major cities?
For clients and also myself, I feel the bigger cities give you a level of security. What I mean by that is we've got to look at the rental market. Yeah. It's mostly young people, right?
Of course.
The guys in the office, slightly younger than me, in their 20s, early 30s, they're renting in the city.
It's true.
Close to where they work, where they socialise, things like that. When you get a bit more middle-aged like me, then you want your own place where, you can have the family maybe outside of the city.
Built up marble kitchen.
Yeah, with the islands and all that kind of business. We've got to look at who rents property, and it is that demographic. 20s to 35. And what I feel for me, I'm going to be holding this investment for many, many years, and to ensure that it's always rented out, then city centres just give me that peace of mind.
Okay.
Also, a part of my plan is, using the growth from the property, to release it equity, reinvest, and then we've got to look at where's the money spent in the UK.
Yeah.
It's mostly cities, right?
Of course.
You've got the Sheffields, Manchesters, Liverpools, Birminghams. These are big cities which are seeing huge investment. Yeah. I was up in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago. The plans there are out of this world.
Yeah. They're scary.
It's massive. It's like they're building a city within a city.
I know. It reminds me a bit of what's that show, Batman, Gotham. It's like when they've got a whole side of it where it's just being built up. And obviously at my degree, we studied HS2 quite a lot. That's Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the whole area around the HS2, there's a couple of different projects happening there. And it's huge. I mean, even one of them, it's just starting now, but some of the commercial space has been rented or earmarked for Deutsche Bank, PwC, Channel 4. And it isn't even out the ground. So for an investor to get into them areas, then the benefits are huge.
So what would you say are the main benefits, Rick, of getting on the boat early, so to speak, rather than, jumping into a city that's already developed and you're like, it's made it. So
yeah, good question. So we've got to think about how long a client or even myself are going to hold the investment. So if you can get in at the very best price, which is typically an off-plan project within a regeneration area, then that will put you in such a great position. It builds a foundation where you're adding value from day one, and you think, in a few years, once that whole area's taken shape, you've got to think of the value of the property and how you can kind of use that as a stepping stone to your next one. I've got really good clients that have purchased in London many years ago. One particular client bought properties around Canary Wharf in the 90s.
they've made it.
She didn't even want to tell me how much she bought it for. I was just like, don't tell me.
Just by saying Canary Wharf, we all know you're good now. Your great grandkids are probably good.
Yeah, and she's told me it's the best thing she's ever done.
Yeah.
It's set up her whole family. Ironically, she's sold them properties now.
Yeah.
And she's buying in places in the north, in the Midlands, just to kind of recreate that. But because she got into the area like Canary Wharf so early, she's reaped all of the rewards, all the benefits, and she's a very savvy lady. She's doing it again in other cities.
Good on her. I love that. I love hearing success stories from our clients because it just reaffirms what we're telling them, isn't it? And they're like, guys, did you know? We're like, well, yeah, we do. We told you.
I mean, history doesn't lie.
No, 100%, 100%. Well, Rick, tell me then. This question I quite like in particular because it's a basic one, but it's one we get asked a lot.
Okay.
So why would you advise someone, or why would you say we should invest in property? Why not leave your money in the bank where it should be safe, and I say safe in quotations, or invest it in something that might be looked at as more lucrative, such as stocks and shares and so on?
Okay, good question. So if I deal with that question in part, so
go for it.
Leaving the money in the bank.
Yeah.
So, well, you tell me, what kind of interest rates do you get on your money? Kind of where it is?
Way under like the 3%.
So roughly 3% is what I'm hearing. We then look at inflation.
Yep.
How much is inflation?
God, where we're at now.
Come on, you're Team Alpha.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What am I talking about forecasted in the future, or are we talking up fast?
I'll put you out of your misery. So inflation is 3% at the moment. It just cancels each other out.
Yeah.
So to have money in the bank, it's just getting dusty. It's not working for you. You will not find a wealthy person, or even if we take it to extremes, billionaires and millionaires that have made their money by just leaving it in the bank. Of course, it's safe to a certain point. There is limits to what's insured, but it's it's a way for your money to stand still.
Yeah.
It's not working for you at all. We then look at stocks and shares.
Yep.
I've got a SIP, so I manage my own pension, and I looked at it the other day, first time for a few months, and it wasn't too great. So a lot of the tech companies that I've got money in have dropped off. So in fact, this year it's lost me money.
Okay.
Put it bluntly. So what we see in terms of property, and why I'd always advise property to be part of an investment portfolio for anyone, is the trajectory of the market is generally upwards.
Okay.
There's going to be dips here and there. Sure. It's not going to go in a straight line. But generally speaking, you won't find a landlord in the UK that have held a property for medium to long term that's lost money.
Yeah.
The values have always moved in the right direction, and then the passive income on the side is just the cherry on
the added
top
bonus,
of the cake,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, like I said, basic question, but it's one that you can agree we get asked all the time.
Yeah.
So for anyone wondering, guys, you heard it here first. And you've got a couple of assets yourself, and I know firsthand, like what you've told us, you're looking to expand that, right? So in the years that you've been investing, you've been in the industry, Rick.
Yeah.
What are the biggest changes that you've seen on the property market?
That's a good question.
It could be just one that stands out particularly to you.
I feel at the moment, and this is a little bit hot off the press.
Yeah.
But I'll let you into this one. I've seen a trend or a shift in the market towards quality. So if we take Manchester, for example, there's some big companies that have relocated there. They call it North Shoring. So they moved their London headquarters to, let's say, Manchester, where it's cheaper to run their business.
Yeah, of course.
So you've got big companies up there now, like Amazon,
BBC
are there. Various kind of banking, insurance companies, and the salaries have increased within the city. So we've now got younger working professionals. They haven't got kids. They're not married. They've got disposable income, and they're earning decent wages, right?
Yeah.
They can get by.
Yeah.
So we've seen a shift with people looking for slightly higher end properties, still in central locations near to where they work, but they'll pay a slightly extra rent for facilities.
Sure.
You know, I'm not saying we have to go extreme, you know, swimming pools on the roof and stuff like that.
A nicer quality of...
But nicer quality, your gyms, co-working space, things like that.
Very important.
So, that's something that, you know, I've advised clients to just keep ahead of that curve in terms of, you know, considering that we always want the property to be rented out. So that's an important note at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I myself, I'm 27, so the property you described there is exactly what appeals to me. So I'd probably be your ideal tenant, isn't it?
I thought you might want the swimming pools and the saunas
100%. The gym, the swimming pool, count me in any day. The next topic that I want to sort of ask you around is something that it's quite a hot topic amongst, I'd say, mainly first-time investors.
Yeah.
Or I could even say habitual investors where they've stuck to one route, and that is our famous, lovely freehold route. So would you say that a freehold makes a safer and more comfortable investment, or what's your opinion on that?
Okay, so this is a big one.
Yep.
You know, I do have this. I do have this conversation most days.
Yeah.
And to start with, I'd say there is different routes that you can go down with property, and I'm not saying they don't work. You know, some routes will have pros and cons, and you know, other routes will slightly differ. But it comes back to what I said previously. Location is such an important thing when it comes to an investment, and then we've got to look at different areas. So city centres, you mostly find apartments, right?
Of course, yeah.
Apartments. So every apartment in the country is leasehold.
Yes.
You know, new properties, we're talking, you know, lease lengths of 1,000 years or 999 years. So it's virtual freehold. But if we're talking about properties that are classed as freehold, they're houses, right?
Yeah.
So houses will be on the outskirts or, you know, further away from the cities.
Yeah, of course.
And then going back to what I said previously, we've got to think of our target market. The target market is younger people. I'm not saying a house outside the city won't rent. You know, there will be families that will rent. On the, you know, the bigger picture, on the whole, you know, people that have families that want to live in houses outside the city, like myself, will want to own them.
Yeah.
You know, they buy them with a mortgage, whatever. So I would say the freehold route is, you may feel you get more for your money. Yeah. But what happens if you can't rent it?
The void period.
That mortgage payment's coming out of your pocket every month.
Exactly.
And I feel the risk there is outside the cities because there's just kind of less young people to rent.
Yeah, definitely. No, I like that answer. And again, like we both said, it is literally something we get asked every single day. I feel like the word freehold should be drilled onto my face. Ricky, you're an investor yourself, right?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to personally pick your brains on is a piece of advice you'd offer someone. So let's say a first-time investor, what is something that you think is crucial that they should research on or make sure that they know about before getting into the property market?
I think you always need to do your homework because we can give advice on different types of properties, different cities, but you always need to be comfortable. Yeah. You know, so do your research, you know, challenge your broker. Yeah. You know, question him. So why have you given me this or her? That was a bit of a slip up, wasn't it? Always challenge them. Yeah. And, you know, through asking questions and through being given evidence and data, that's the only way that you can feel comfortable in terms of making the investment. Of course. The second piece of advice would be never try and time the market. You know, we've seen it during COVID, Brexit, where the market's going to fall. I'm going to wait for 6 months. Yeah. And what happens? It went the other way. Exactly. So, you know, these guys are... some people I'm speaking to now, you know, they're investing, but they're paying so much more than they should because they should have invested 3, 4, 5 years ago. Of course. So it's not about timing the market; it's about the time that you own your property or hold the investment. Yeah, and with property, there's no time like the present, isn't it? With the way that the market's moving,
the property market, like we were saying, I think last couple of weeks ago with one of the others on here, it's always, you know, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, but for the most part, you're going to be in profit. So it's no time like the present.
I mean, I'm bound to agree with that because I work in sales and I work in property.
This is true. But like you said, history doesn't lie. Is that what you said?
Yeah, true. Yeah,
There you go.
I'm being quoted here already. But honestly, you know, the sooner you invest, you know, the returns mount up.
Of course.
You know, you start generating your income, the growth of the property. You wait for a year, you know, you're potentially missing out on 10%.
Yeah. And like you said, do your own homework. Of course, like we will say what we know, but if you do your own research, you'll find out what we're saying is true.
Yeah.
Now you've got your own investments. I keep saying that, but I'm gonna refer that a lot. I think it's nice that you've done this yourself firsthand.
Yeah.
How would you say, Rick, that your investments have been impacted by the recent changes? You know, we've seen a lot of change of stamp duty, the new change in government, and so on.
Another good question. So, one of the big things that are coming up at the moment is like the renters' rights, which I completely understand. By the way, you know, the Labour government have brought in kind of a ban on no fault evictions, so you can't just, you know, ask your tenant to leave for no reason. At the same time, they've also streamlined the eviction process if they're not paying rent. So it's kind of there's two sides to what they've brought in.
Yeah.
And I think personally they're both quite fair.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a good tenant that's paying the rent, you know, being responsible, they shouldn't have to kind of up sticks and go. And at the same time, if there's a tenant there that's not paying, they should be removed from the property, or, you know, there should be a streamlined process to evict them. For me, what I've found is, for example, my Sheffield property, I've got a trainee doctor. So really nice young lady, pays the rent every month on time, looks after the property, being good as gold. So I'm pretty safe in the knowledge that, you know, it's very unlikely that she's not going to stop paying the rent.
Yeah.
You know, because that is one of the risks, or one of the, you know, slight concerns people have when they invest. So what we've done there, because I've focused on city centres, you know, near to the train station, near to the business district and the hospital, obviously, where she works, that has just allowed me to have a high quality tenant. So someone that's responsible, got a good job, you know, and it kind of works both ways. You know, they look after the property, and for me, that just lowers my risk. I've got no plans to, you know, change them, and no worries that there might be any issues with the rent. Okay.
Something you sort of mentioned at the start was that your Mrs. Zoe, she is renovating the property at the minute, or the kitchen. So why would you say that an investor should go down the buy-to-let route? Why not buy a property, do it up like yourself, and then sell it?
Firstly, for me, I'm adding value to my own property where I live.
Of course.
I don't plan to sell it. Okay.
Nice.
So for me, it's just making it comfortable kind of environment for my kids, and just adding some value that I might release. I might remortgage and kind of invest into another property. But for me to do that on let's say a buy to let, go and buy a place and renovate it. I just don't have the time, Tina. I mean, I don't think my wife can project manage two projects.
Can you imagine asking her to do that?
I don't have the time. And when we look at it here and now, if you look at it purely as a business, you know, materials gone up, labour costs have gone up. Even if I want to flip it, there's capital gains tax to be paid. So all of them things start to kind of shrink what you can make.
The profits,
rather than buying a property in an area, you know, like the next Canary Wharf, for example, something like that, where I just sit back and relax and allow the value to increase without having to get my hands dirty.
Yeah, you want it to be stress-free and hands-off, right?
Completely.
Perfect. Well, we're almost at the end here now, but bringing it back to you. So is there something that you wish you'd maybe have done differently when investing in your first buy-to-let? I mean, I know you've got good teachers, Chris and Jack, like advising you firsthand.
No.
No?
I think I'm happy. I mean, I bought them off plan.
Yeah.
Bought them below market value in areas where I know money's being spent on it. For example, Sheffield, there's the heart of the city plan. So about £500 million going into the area.
Yeah.
I know it's a solid investment for me and my family. Likewise with Liverpool. Liverpool Waters, a £5 billion regen.
Insane.
You can't go wrong.
Of course.
The only thing I would rather do now is buy a few more.
Yeah, well, soon. Big things coming, new year.
Yeah, but we've got to get that kitchen finished first.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Oh, that's priority. Don't do
Yeah.
anything until that marble worktop is in.
I might need a mortgage just to pay that bill.
Well, listen, Rick, I'm coming down to the last question. I love asking this because I like to see everyone's different response. But if you could go back in time, let's say back to when you're 20.
Time machine time, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
back to when you're 20.
Yeah.
This is obviously before you had kids and so on, but
Yeah.
what advice would you give 20-year-old Ricky?
Don't be so stubborn. Don't stick with something because of your ego.
Okay.
And if something's not working, which it didn't for me in terms of having my own business,
Yeah.
but I clung so quick, kind of closely onto the dream. Yeah, if I had kind of maybe used them experience through essentially a failed business,
Yeah.
and got into something else quicker, I think I would have reaped the rewards a little bit early. So I'm just glad now I'm in the position where I've had them experiences. I've got that work ethic. Working in hospitality was brutal.
Oh.
And I've brought that across to something I love and got a passion for. And the future looks bright.
Amazing. Well, I've loved having you on here and I've loved picking your brains firsthand, especially because I'm on your team. I feel like I've learned a few new things. Thank you so much for being on here, Ricky. I feel like it's flown by.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up. I don't want to take too much of your time, but there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed interviewing Ricky. And come back next week where we'll have another one of our lovely guests on here. But for now, goodbye.